Hey YouTube, Takes an EDC Cave. Welcome to the channel. Today's video I wanted to discuss the Paramilitary 2 and my thoughts on it since I've had this knife for a pretty decent time and basically my overall opinion on it. So this is, many of you know, the Paramilitary 2. It's been out for a very long time, and this was for a very long time, you know, their go-to knife for Spyderco. And rightfully so. It's got, you know, very good attributes to it that a lot of people find attractive. But I have some different opinions on it that I haven't heard too many people talk about, and I just want to share those with you. So let's start with the steel. This particular model is the S110V, which is a very hard steel. It keeps an edge for a pretty decent time. It does chip easily, in my experience, but you know, depending on what you're going to be cutting with it, that may or may not be an issue. I've never had it rust on me, which is also a plus, because I do use this knife a lot for food prepping, and you know, I've never oiled this blade and I've never had any rust stains. My Benchmade 940, which is S30V, it has had some, you know, staining, but that's because it's been a little neglected. But even with this, I've never had any rusting issues. So material, this knife particular design is my G10, not my card, I'm sorry. This is G10, and G10 is an interesting material. It's a very hard material, but it's also not, it's not like a metal, so it doesn't dent very easily, at least, and it doesn't really show a whole lot of wear because, you know, the color that you see isn't a painting, it's the actual material's color. I have a love-hate relationship with G10. For the bright side of it is, you know, it doesn't really scratch the paint or the color. It's cheaper to manufacture, and you can get some pretty decent texturizing out of it. Let me see if I can show you, see how it's got some texture on it, which is really good for traction. Not really applicable to some people, as you know, they're not going to be needing that traction, but for some people it is nice. Some things I don't like about it is sometimes whenever you wash the knife, if you use any type of cleaner, whether it's, you know, you could use Simple Green or Dawn dish soap or anything, after you wash it and it dries, it gets like a white chalky look to it, and it goes away if you start rubbing it with your fingers. But I never really liked that part of it, especially because you can kind of see in there, those are like the harder parts to reach. So you kind of have to, like, I find that if you just get some light oil and you put it on there and then you just wipe it off, the color restores. But that's one thing I don't like about G10. Another thing is, it doesn't really attract me. You know, that's just an opinion. You know, that's not really based on anything. It's just kind of personal preference. Whenever I see a knife manufacturer use G10, I'm like, okay, they didn't want to take the time and expense to produce something out of a metal, whether it's, you know, steel. Well, I don't know why anyone would use steel, aluminum, titanium, you know, anything like that. That's just something that attracts me. I like knives that are made out of some sort of aluminum or titanium. I'm not really attracted to G10. It's kind of boring to me, but you know, I know a lot of people are attracted to G10, especially since you can make some really cool patterns where, you know, you'll have different layers of different colors, and that looks cool, don't get me wrong, but I just don't like how it feels in my hand, and I'm just not a fan of it. They have had a lot of runs where they've used, you know, different materials. Some have used carbon fiber. I think they've come out with some aluminum versions or titanium. I don't know. I know they've come out with micarta too, but for your plain Jane Paramilitary 2, it's going to come in G10. Blade shape. So blade shape is really nice. It's very good at, you know, cutting through. I like to cut through envelopes. It can get very, you can get a very fine edge on there, you know, finer than a Benchmade 940, which some of you disagreed with me whenever I said that the 940 can be very sharp and cut just as well as most knives, and I still stand by that. Obviously, if I sharpen this knife and I sharpen the 940, this is gonna be a better slicer, but I mean, I guess it just depends on what you want from it. I have found that it's very good at slicing fruits, just because it's so thin, and then this full flat grind that Spyderco is known for, which is what you see a lot on chef knives. You know, there's a reason that they go to this shape, because they have found out that this is a very efficient shape for cutting through, you know, fruits, vegetables, meats. But I do like the blade shape. One thing I don't like with Spyderco is they always leave these striations. See if I can get you, yeah. I don't like these striations. It just looks unfinished to me. I know some of the Taiwan-made 940s, Taiwan-made Spydercos tend to polish that out a little bit more, but that's just not something that I like. It just looks unfinished to me. I also don't appreciate how short this handle or this blade is compared to the handle. It's not very efficient, because part of it is just because of the spider hole. You can't really bring it too far back, or else you just won't have space to deploy it. And part of it is also because they incorporated this finger choil up here, which is nice, but I really don't find myself using it too much. I feel like if I'm ever going to be cutting anything, I'm going to be holding the knife like this and slicing. I guess if you're cutting rope, you know, you want to kind of choke up on that. So it's really a balance of, well, more like compromise. Do you want to be choking up on the knife more and then not worry about how much blade material you're left with, or do you want to have a lot of handle material? Which I have small to medium sized hands. I'm kind of in between there, and this is more handle than I really need, especially if I choke up on it. Look how much material I have left here. But, you know, I'm kind of neutral on that, but it is what it is. You know, y'all can decide on that, whether that's something y'all want. So ergonomics is really where this knife kind of loses me, and this is another reason why I'm just not the biggest fan of the Paramilitary 2. If you look at the design of this, it's very squared off. So you've got a flat piece of G10 on one side, another flat piece of G10 on this side, and then you've got these corners, which, yeah, they rounded them a little bit, but it's still, you can definitely feel it whenever you put it in your hand, how square it is. It's just not the most ergonomic knife, you know, compared to other knives that I have where they're more contoured and, you know, they take into account more the shape of the hand. It's really not a big deal if you're only using your knife for short periods of time, but if you're going to be cutting with this a long time, or you're going to be holding this in your hand for extended period of time, you're definitely going to start feeling how squarey and just the design shortcomings of this. Another ergonomic issue that I found is I like the compression lock that Spyderco has come up with, but on some knives, including this one, I have found that whenever you go to open it, sometimes whenever this bar springs forward, it'll kind of pinch the fat of your hand, and I'm not a big fan of that, because, I mean, yeah, you can work around it, but it's just, you know, whenever you need your knife in a pinch, you're not thinking about how you're going to open the knife. You just go and open the knife. See, there it did. It actually did it right here. It's just annoying, especially because, I mean, it's uncomfortable. It's not painful, but it's there, and it's just like, okay, they could have done something, I guess, to not have that happen. It's just kind of the nature of the beast with this lock. It is a very sturdy lock. I have no up and down play, no side to side play. Maybe a little bit, but that could be adjusted with the pivot on here. I mean, you can see this is one of my smoother knives. How much, I guess, free play, free floating. Very smooth. But yeah, that's one thing I don't like about the compression lock. Another thing is I don't like when closing it, you don't really have a whole lot of knife to hold on to. Whenever I'm closing it, you're kind of just holding the knife like this, and you don't feel very secure all the time whenever you're closing it. Of course, you could close it like this, almost like a back lock, only, you know, it kind of defeats the purpose of being able to quickly open and close the knife, but it just doesn't feel very secure. A lock that they also have on their Mannix, I forget what this lock is called. I think it's called the ball lock. I don't know. But this, you have a whole lot more surface area to hold the knife with whenever you're opening it and closing it. As with this, you know, you don't really have a very secure method of closing it and opening it. Deployment, you know, typical Spyderco. I've never really had a Spyderco knife that had a slow deployment, super fast. And of course, with the spider hole, you can open it however your heart desires. Let's see if I can do a pinky. Nope. But, I mean, it's really, have your heart decide how you want to open it. You know, there is one thing I appreciate with Spydercos, and that's how slim the knife can be, because you don't need a thumb stud sticking out. It's a very slim design whenever it goes into your pocket. You know, if you have this in your pocket and you're reaching in to grab something else, your hand isn't getting caught in anything because, you know, it just incorporates a simple hole. This does have the larger hole than some of the Spydercos. I think the Endura has the smaller hole. This one has a larger hole. I guess it's better for gloved use. I don't really find myself wearing gloves very often, and if I do, I'm wearing some, I think they're called mechanics gloves, so they offer a little bit more dexterity. Hardly do I ever wear those fake gloves. I just think they're a nuisance, and you can't really do too much with those. Price, I think whenever I bought this back in, maybe it was 2018, maybe 2017. No, it had to have been later or earlier than that. I think it was 2016, I believe. I think I paid maybe $150 for this, and the price has definitely gone up, you know, inflation and everything. So a lot of the knives that I own, if I really wanted to, I could make some decent money out of them since I've had them for a while and price has definitely gone up. But those are really my overall thoughts on this. Comes with a lanyard hole. I really don't care for lanyard holes. I never use a lanyard on mine. The liners are polished. I actually do want to cover this. This is something that bugs me with Benchmade that Spyderco does take the time to do. If you look in there, might be kind of hard to see, but they actually do polish their liners, which just, it gives a knife a more finished look, but oddly enough, they don't finish the blade, so it's kind of like, it's almost equaling out. Benchmade does take the time to put a nice finish on their blade, but they just leave their liners, oops, they leave their liners, you know, with that sanded look. But yeah, that's really about it. Let me know what you guys think of this knife, and if you guys agree with my opinions on it. Of course, y'all are free to disagree. You know, this channel is all about sparking conversation and, you know, my truthful opinion on it. I'm not going to say I love this knife just because the internet seems to, you know, love this knife and come out with a new design every, I say new design, a new pattern or material every other week. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and thanks for tuning in. This is the Texan EDC Cave channel, and thank you for watching.